Hello, I'm Jeff Liebmann, consulting minister at the Unitarian Universalist congregation of Smithton, Pennsylvania. I'm coming to you today along the banks of the Youghiogheny River, just downriver from the town of Smithton itself. And I'm a couple hundred feet down from the Great Allegheny Passage, a fantastic rails-to-trail hiking and biking path that runs hundreds of miles through the Appalachians. So if you ever find yourself in southwestern Pennsylvania, hiking or biking, stop in and see us. The subject of our service is Margaret Fuller, transcendentalist who was born on May 23rd, 200 years ago this year, in 1810. Now, as was the case of many prominent women of her day, including many famous Unitarians and Universalists, Margaret did not have opportunities for formal education like that was available to boys and young men. So as a young girl, she obtained a classical education at home from her father. Later, however, she was sent to a traditional finishing school to learn the arts taught to women of the day in preparation for being wives and mothers. Now, this was a difficult time for Margaret, as she was torn between the wishes of her progressive father and a society that did not yet allow women to enter libraries, let alone enroll in colleges or speak on a lecture circuit. So I want to start this service with a guided meditation. I want you to close your eyes and imagine that you're in a large gymnasium, standing on the floor in front of a large crowd of onlookers. You're a gymnast, and before you stands the balance beam. As you mount the beam, you feel your feet grip the 4-inch plank beneath you. The arena is silent as your arms stretch out to your sides for balance. This helps you imagine how women like Margaret Fuller felt in the early 19th century, pulled on one side by societal expectations and limitations defining the roles of women, pulled on the other by a well-meaning father who cultivated a love of learning and knowledge. Now imagine those forces pulling you one way and then the other. Now your feet are still clinging tightly to that beam, while your body makes constant small adjustments. The pressure is intense, giving you a taste of the conflict the women like Margaret Fuller felt. Outcast in one world, not fully welcomed in another. Now, feel within your core, at the pit of your torso, an inner strength. Something that helps you maintain your balance. This force sends tendrils of power through your arms and legs, out to your hands and feet, helping you to maneuver this narrow path. As we'll learn, Margaret Fuller found her core strength, her unique gift, that helped her to cope and to thrive in life. You too can find that gift, or if you're lucky enough to have already found it, you can work constantly to hone that gift, not only for your own benefit, but for the good of all humanity. Now, although an educated and intelligent person, many occupations were closed to Margaret and other women of her day. So at the age of 29, she began holding conversations at Elizabeth Peabody's bookstore in Boston. For 4 years, Margaret offered 2 conversation series for women each year on subjects like education, health, and culture that were not typically part of a young woman's education. She also met regularly with other transcendentalists of the day, such as her friend Ralph Waldo Emerson. Now, in that same year of 1839, Margaret was asked to serve as the editor of The Dial, a transcendentalist literary quarterly journal. As one of America's first literary critics, she began working on a manuscript that was eventually published in 1844, titled Woman in the 19th Century. The work was the first book-length treatment on the equality of men and women, and spoke frankly on issues including economic and social barriers, prostitution, and homosexuality. Hired as a journalist on Horace Greeley's New York Daily Tribune, Fuller became one of America's first foreign correspondents when she sailed to Europe, met famous authors, and wrote about the conditions of the poor and the common worker. In Rome, she met and fell in love with a nobleman named Ossoli, who fathered her son Angelino. Both were active in the Italian Revolution, and were eventually forced to flee, sailing for America. In July of 1850, their ship struck a sandbar during a storm off the shores of Fire Island, drowning Margaret, Ossoli, and their son. She died at the age of 40, and her manuscript on the history of the Italian Revolution was never recovered. Discerning our gifts. Imagine at the moment you are born, you sit in a large chair at the head of a long table. Now this table stretches out far away from you, so far that you cannot see the end in the dim shadows. Covering this table are wrapped presents of every conceivable shape and size. Some are wrapped in bright, cartoonish patterns and colors. Some have elaborate ribbons and bows adorning their sides. Others sit simply in plain shades or foil. Now, without lifting or unwrapping them, you can guess the contents of many of the packages. One large irregular shape is clearly a bicycle. Another box has circular holes, perhaps providing air for a puppy or a kitten. A spherical shape is almost certainly a bowling ball. And many have that distinctive shape of a folded shirt, or even worse, a row of socks. Smaller packages abound as well. Flat and rectangular boxes for ties or scarves, long and thin boxes for bracelets, and a few small cubes for earrings or perhaps even a ring. But many of the contents remain mysterious, with no obvious clues to divulge their identities, merely based on visual observation. As you scan this horizon of colors and shapes, you sense that one of these packages somehow differs from all the rest. You perceive, perhaps on an instinctual, irrational level, that one of these presents contains something special and unique. You feel that there is one gift before you that no other person has on their table of life. You have no idea what this special gift looks like, its shape or size, where it lies on the table, what other presents surround it, or even cover it. Perhaps it sits in plain view, apart from other gifts. It may lie buried beneath a mountain of other gifts of varying importance. Your special gift may be the first one, right under your nose on the table. Or it may lay far off in the unseeable future. But somehow you know that that gift is there, somewhere in the world of things you will receive in your life.